Right, Joe Walker here, Yonah Mountain Farms. This is going to be a quick little video on how our electric fence is set up. And Sean, this video is for you out in Iowa, about to get started on his regenerative agricultural journey. So if you hear that clicking, this is our perimeter fence. So this is from Tractor Supplies, just the cheapest one, the cheapest, strongest one I could find. So that is a 16 joule, and we got it plugged into the electrical here. Got the ground wire going out to the ground. That's the green. Got the red going out, following with this insulated wire. This comes out of the barn, and it actually runs aerial for a minute. So the insulated wire is this black wire, high tensile, right there, runs all the way up, comes out through the roof and runs, or actually up, but you can't really see it, but it runs down to where our electrical starts. This high tensile strand runs about 3,000 feet that way, curves, comes back up along this tree line, which is another 3,000 feet. So a little over a mile probably of a little over a mile of fence, and then we just tap into that so to power everything. So we tap into that to basically power our netting, to power our poly braid for the calves. So in most of my recent videos, I've had the calves, the sheep, and the goats together. Well, we're coming up on what will typically be our first frost. Average first frost is October 15th in this region. And this is the area that back in June we originally, or no, this was July. This was July 4th where we hit this lane right here with the sheep and the goats. It would have been the next lane that we brought the cows in, but this was all essentially blackberries. And wow, just to show you guys real quick how this has grown. So we just separated the cows and the sheep yesterday because I wanted to take advantage of all this grass that was up here, which you can see they've done quite the number already since we moved them up here yesterday, but they got a lot more to eat, and we'll probably keep them here another day or so. But I really want to show you guys the improvement of this pasture that was essentially blackberries. I mean, this whole thing was like solid blackberries, and now it's predominantly foxtail. This is all predominantly foxtail grass. You can see my tracks where I drove through here, but there is a lot underneath here as well, underneath these tall this tall foxtail grass. There's some pigweed, but we can see how tall this is against these hay bales. These are 4x4 hay bales. I mean, this is a lot of forage and not nearly as much blackberries. There's still blackberries. They're heavy in this spot, and they're heavier further down that way, which is why we have this hay staged, because my intentions are to basically roll this hay out over all these blackberry patches this winter. Once all this gets laid down by the cows, the sheep and goats are about 2,000 feet that way. They're going to finish out that section of pasture, which will take them, now that they're by themselves, probably another month, and then they'll come up here and they'll eat hay and residue, whatever's left over from the cows. But anyhow, single poly braid with the tread in post. And I'm not going to walk all the way down to the end, but where the tree line is, that's where a single strand of high tensile is. And this poly braid is just wrapped around there. So let me get out here. I got to get the pigs moved, and then we'll get out here to the chickens and the sheep and goats, and I'll show y'all exactly how we connect the fence to the perimeter. All right, Joe Walker here. It is October 13th, about 1:30, and we're about to show you guys the pig paddock real quick. So we basically set this up, I don't know, it's been about a week, actually probably more like 10-14 days. So this is the drainage ditch coming from the pond up here, and we just run a single strand of poly braid. And so we were really trying to get them to clean out this ditch, basically to root up around in there and just increase water flow. But honestly, it hadn't worked out that well, and I think that's because we've given them such a large paddock. There's only 9 pigs in here, which is great for really good tasting pork. They got plenty to forage, but here we go. We can see them down here. They've created this mud hole in the ditch. But anyhow, they've been here long enough. So this is actually where I fed them. I would dump their bags of feed. This was all multiflora rows, and there's an old bridge right over here that we were trying to clean out. So I've been dumping their feed on these blackberries and this multiflora rows to attempt to get really heavy impact there. But I had to run this paddock so big mainly for shade, because the training pen was back over here, back at the barn where we just come from. And I had to run a fairly large paddock to get them back here to this tree line so that they've had shade, because we don't do any structures for them. They just basically, I mean, does a pig need a structure? No, pigs are just fine with trees. So anyhow, we ran them back to this this area, and the drainage ditch continues. Got the new paddock built. So just another single strand of poly braid. I like to use 2 reels so that I have 2 points of access to open them up, so you can have them connected at one end, reel 1, reel 2, have them connected at this end. They run out and then connect at the far end, which is where you are, if you're heading in that direction, that's where you're going to open it up next. So this is where they're coming anyhow. Single poly braid. I kind of skipped this section because of difficulties crossing this ditch, and I ended up crossing it further this way. So it goes up there, crosses the ditch, and plenty of grass. And they obviously still have a tremendous amount to eat over there, but they'll get some fresh forage, some fresh water. And this is actually my perimeter fence right here. And right here I just used an insulator that was actually already on this power pole. So somebody else had used it before, so I just ran my high tensile through it. But my high tensile is only held up by a few posts, stuff like this, a few T-posts here and there. But anyhow, this is the pig's paddock. They're coming in, lots of clover, lots of forage. But anyhow, this wire, just like in my other video where I was able to run the netting underneath and prop it up, I don't have to prop this wire up nearly as high, but I can run my pigs underneath it and give them a larger paddock of some less used space. So this is obviously more wooded, and just plenty to eat, lots of forage. So here's the other end of the paddock. I don't know what these concrete things were here for, but they've been here forever. So we cross the creek right here, or the drainage ditch. And then here I have my 2 reels meet again. And just tie those up, wrap them around each other. And we'll be able to connect right here with the alligator clamps. So let me walk back to the truck and I'll grab those clamps real quick. We'll make it hot and get the pigs moved. All right, so got my alligator clamps. These are from Premier One. You know, you can make these or whatever. I just ordered them. They're $3 or $4 from Premier One. And we're just simply going to take our, we're just simply going to take our clamp and clamp it to our perimeter fence. And then take our other end and clamp it to our poly braid. And I have my handy dandy fence tester, so we'll see what it's hitting at. 5.3, 5.4, that's plenty. So these pigs are already broke and it's hitting pretty hard, so let's get back over here and get them moved into this paddock. But yeah, I think I shot a video. I guess that was about, let's see, that would have been around maybe August that the cows, sheep, and goats come through here. Maybe the end of July, somewhere. I think it was actually about August when the cows, sheep, and goats come through here. But yeah, it's recovered quite nicely. Perimeter fence is clear. That's a good thing. And this will be a perfect paddock for our pasture-raised pigs. They'll have plenty to eat, plenty to root around and forage. And then we'll give them this non-GMO, no corn, no soy supplemental feed here. Let me get this thing set up and I'll be back. All right, so I just got to untie this reel, unwrap this reel, and actually I'll show you guys that real quick. So this is why we do to have the reels meet right here, so we can untie it in one location. And obviously this is, it's okay, piggies. Obviously this is hot at the moment. I could have made it not hot, but might as well bring you guys along for the full experience. It can sometimes be a shocking one. But yeah, I usually just wrap this bad boy up, try to get it about 3 or 4 times, make sure we got a good connection. All right, so this one's free. I'm gonna set it back right there. Put the camera back up on the old heavy Chevy. Hopefully that angle is good enough. And we'll open this up and get the pigs through. So a lot of times they don't just come rushing through. They're very cautious of this wire. And even when the wire is down, they still don't really want to come through. So we're going to entice them with a little feed. So I'm going to bring it over here a little bit away. Yep, piggies. All right, so what we're using here is we use Tucker Millen non-GMO, no soy, no corn feed, and plenty of fresh pasture. So once they come on through, we can just simply close this one back. So yeah, the real work is in setting it all up, This is actually the fun part. This is the cool part I enjoy the most, which is actually moving them. So we're just gonna tighten that up a little bit. And hook it here. Try to hook it here. Well, anyhow, time to set the phone down. That's the pastured pig move. That's the fence tips. And you got to get these animals trained. So if you haven't, check out the training paddock video. And we'll see y'all on the next one. Oh, and a quick note to our customers, people who normally buy their pasture-raised pork from us. I apologize for the wait, but it'll be worth it. This is how we raise your pork. Thank you so much. All right, here's another quick shot of on the other end of the pig paddock of how I made this one hot. So they did a lot of rooting right here, but it was still fairly untouched. They did root down in that ditch a lot, which is good. That's what we were looking for. But this one here, I had the solar charger hooked up. It died on me. So, and I didn't have enough excess wire to run to the fence. So I just used another reel. And you see how I just wrapped that up real good because I want as much of those little fibers to make as solid as a connection as I can. And then I just run that poly braid right here. I had a post right here holding it up off the ground, just a regular tread-in post. But yeah, just run it to your perimeter fence. And in this case, I didn't have any alligator clamps with me, so just wrap it around a bunch, which, you know, this is another potentially shocking experience unhooking this, but it works. But, you know, get you some alligator clamps. That's the better way. All right, so we don't always have the paddock that whatever animals are in hooked up to the perimeter fence. It basically really just depends on the situation. This particular paddock right here, this is the sheep and goats, the small flare, the bachelor pad. Let me get this water in here, but yeah, this is the bachelor pad where we have the male sheep and goats in with their dog, and we actually just found that hay ring. It was essentially buried in brush, but yeah. So here we have two nettings, and we're a good bit away from either side of the perimeter. It's about 500 feet that way, maybe 300 or 400 feet that way, and it's just a pain in the butt. So we had this, you know, we've used a lot of solar, and for a small flock like this, there's only about 12, maybe 15 animals in there. These chargers, this is an old paddock, by the way, and we just moved them over here about 2 days ago, so we'll let them hit it pretty hard. But this charger works well. So this is the Premier One, or from Premier One, and this one's grounding out somewhere. That's why it's got a red flash, or the battery's a little weak, but it's still hitting hard enough. And but the IntelliShock 180, I want to say the website says, and these are just portable 18-inch ground rods with those black alligator clamps connecting them. You got the one ground side connecting to one, and then a clamp connecting to those, and then, you know, your clamp running to the fence. So right now this fence is powering 2 nettings. I wouldn't try to do any more than that. I want to say the website says like 10 to 15 nettings. Maybe that's the 80-foot nettings. Maybe that's a perfect, you know, mowed lawn with nothing touching the fence. But in our situation, 2 nettings is pretty much the max I would run on that. But yeah, that's one of our other electrical fence hacks, is don't always run it to the perimeter. You know, I mean, we started out pretty much everything was solar until we got somewhere where it was just kind of a necessity. But even our perimeter fence at our first lease was solar. But anyhow, that's one of the solar chargers we use, and I'll get some footage of another one here later. Hey, Mama. All right, so we separated the cows from the sheep and the goats, and the reason for that was mainly we separated the cows from the sheep and the goats, and the main reason for that was we were coming on about 120 days, or at least 100 days rest. Well, from then until now, so from about mid-July until where we at, mid-October, so July, August, September, October, 4 months, so about 120 days. Yeah, we were coming up on about 120 days rest up there, where the goats and the sheep and the cows had really just ran through that briar patch. A tremendous amount of briars. So this was getting to be, that was getting pretty old. So we wanted to go ahead and hit it. We're coming up on the first frost. It'll probably, first frost is, the average date of our first frost is October 15th. So even though it's not in the forecast for the next 10 days, who knows, it could happen at any time. So we really just wanted to take advantage of that forage on the far end, go ahead and start running the cows back through that. And then this poor, more mature forage, the sheep and the goats are much more capable of utilizing this poorer forage. So we've separated them. We're running them in tight paddocks. So as you can see, this is what they're moving on to. That's actually some wood from a brush pile, but that we'll be able to see clear as day tomorrow. So this is what they just had for 24 hours, and this is what they're moving on to. We're going to finish out the rest of this farm, turn the corner back here, get on the other side of that tree line and run back, and eventually they'll get back up front to where we just moved the cows to. So these guys will probably stay separate until the growing season comes, until it gets to a point where we have to knock the forage down like this in order to move our chickens. So yeah, we're here in the egg layer paddock, which consists of about 4 days of what was sheep, goat, and cattle paddocks, what will now be sheep and goat paddocks. So now their next paddock, it'll probably be about 4 days before the chickens move on to what the sheep and goats had mowed. And we typically I was talking earlier about the turkeys and our broilers that we raise for meat. We actually like them to be in really tall, overgrown pasture, because it provides, first of all, if it's overgrown, it's matured, it's gone to seed. So there's a lot of nutrition in those seeds, and it provides another layer of coolness in the summer months. So we're only raising our broilers spring through fall. We've actually processed our last batch of broilers for a couple reasons. One, they don't grow as well because the days are shorter, so they're not eating as much. So that's why, as the daylight hours decrease, they sleep more and eat less, and they don't put on the weight. You'd have to run them an extra 2-3 weeks at best. But anyhow, we like them in that tall, mature forage for shade. These girls are going crazy. But we like them in that tall, mature forage for the shade and all the seeds. But we can't put our egg layers in that type of forage. The reason being is we won't find any eggs. I mean, would they love it? Yes. But we wouldn't be able to gather eggs because they'd lay them wherever in the middle of that stuff that we'd never be able to find them. as well as during fly season, which is spring, summer, and fall, we want to take advantage of the layers scratching the poop. So we don't run the broilers behind there because they'll basically just be laying in poop their whole lives. And but we do run the egg layers through there because the egg layers will actually roost up in their structure. The broilers, they just lay on the ground. So we want these guys to scratch up all these heavy cow pies. You know, that's a cow pie that was scratched up to eat all those bugs. And but we don't want our broilers running through this stuff because there's just not as much shade or ground cover. But anyhow, this video is supposed to be about the electric fences. So let me go ahead and get this one cut off, and I'll show you guys how we do this, the chicken paddock on, you know, the netting. This is probably 664-foot netting, so this is a pretty large paddock for the birds, and they got access. You know, the cows, sheep, and goats come through here, and basically, I mean, you couldn't walk through this a week ago, but they defoliated it, laid it down, stomped out a bunch of grasshoppers. There's still a ton of bugs in here, and this is, we're getting back into the woods, so the chickens have access to this as well. And so yeah, as we come up to this netting here, basically here's my perimeter. Here's my, I actually have this netting hooked on to that side of the perimeter, and I can kill that side of the perimeter. It's basically functioning like a cutout switch. I can just unclip this, and that kills this side of the perimeter on this side of the post. So now my netting is not hot. And now I can go move these sheep and goats real quick. But yeah, it's pretty cool. I was actually reading about the carotenoids in grasshoppers. I mean, what else you gonna read about, right? If you run layers on pasture, carotenoids are what you're interested in, which are the protein responsible for the pigmented, the orange yolks. And we get compliments constantly on our yolks, and they do look really good. I mean, that's kind of what we're used to now, but if you look, there's really not a whole lot of greenness left in this paddock after the cows and goats, you know, running them through the high density. There's a ton of manure, so there's a ton of bugs, and there's a ton of grasshoppers. I mean, there is some you know, little bits of green grass left in here, but for the most part it's gone. But we still have such rich dark yolks, and we always comment on the extreme number of grasshoppers that are in these paddocks. And I mean, these things are massive. These things are like 2.5, 3 inches long. They're huge. And when I turn the chickens into here, they just go nuts foraging for them. And I looked it up. The carotenoids are like 10 times higher and concentrated in these grasshoppers. So that's, you know, I mean, it makes sense. It's bioavailable protein for the chickens, and that, you know, has a huge impact on egg size, or I'm sorry, on yolk color. But let me get over here. I got to hook this side up. So yeah, there's some cocklebur. I don't know what these yellow flowers were. There's a bunch of stuff underneath as well. But let's get this hooked up. So the fence is off. To hook another netting on, just make a chain of nettings here. I'm gonna pause this and get it done, and then I'll show you. All right, so on the Premier 1 nettings, they have this little clip. What I do is when I'm butting nettings up against each other and it's not a seam, so what I consider a seam is when the ends of two nettings actually touch, but when they don't, when you have to do it like this, I just simply tuck the shorter post or whatever, you know, they're not always going to be even, tuck it under one of the wires, and then the clip, just clip it here. And so then when I hook the charger back up, when I clip that back on, it'll make all this hot. And I have to do the same over here on this side. Get over the fence. Right, and then we'll just close this back off, move the water over, and done deal. So here's the other side where I'm butting in to this one. So we'll just tuck that under and clip this on. Got to use my other hand. Let's see if I can pin this. Look at there. Clip that on. Good to go. You can bend these, push these tabs in a little bit. All right, and now we can just let these goats through. Goats and sheep. And they are ready. They ain't quite like the pigs. They know what's up. It's time for freshness. Go to goats. Ship, 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 ship. Oh man, I got one stuck in something. Oh. Oh my goodness. Come here, baby. Oh man. Yeah, that was crazy. Yeah, that that normally doesn't happen, but yeah, apparently there's some old fencing out here, and the lamb got caught in it. But luckily, that could have been a lot worse. But anyhow, yeah, goats and sheep know what's up. They're gonna attack this, annihilate this, and I'm obviously going to be doing a lot of editing on this video. So yeah, and then just hook this wire right back up, clip it, and now the goats and the sheep can continue opening up pasture for the egg layers.